Hello, thanks for dropping by. The assembled mess on the desk is historic. It is. On the desk there are two 8010 modems. It looks like 3 answer circuits, one heavily adapted and modified to allow for amplification. I am going to try and kind of set these things all together because I am going to store them and document them, and I will have to consult with my brother to make sure that I have everything just tickety-boo. So, here we are. Ugh. So this, of course, is an answer circuit for a PET. It would go on the user port, and this, I suppose, after bulletin boards became more popular and common, would have been made by Richfield Telecommunications. Peter Smith was the man, and he had some very strong views on certain things, and also he pretty much wouldn't make anything he couldn't fit inside an amp connector. He made the C-Link and the V-Link and all sorts of things he did. Anyway, this would be an answer circuit that is quite a bit neater and tidier than what we first started with. I will put that over here because the first answer circuit that I ever had, and if I'm not mistaken, this might have been made by a fellow I'm still in touch with. He was a disc jockey for CFTR in Toronto, and I first met him at Richfield Telecommunications one day because they were looking into running a bulletin board at CFTR so they could get feedback from their listeners, because they were very good at having their finger on the pulse of the city and who was buying what and what was hot and what was here and what was there. This was important. They were like they were good, and they used the PET to do all their database stuff, and it would produce these magical lists, and it was Bob was way ahead of his time, way ahead. Anyway, but this is the answer circuit that I mostly used, and as you can see, yes, it would have gone with this modem and power supply. And I would have to refresh myself on everything that was necessary and everything that it did. But this cord, this went to the user port, this one, went into the side of the modem. Why? I'm not exactly sure. But I will finally have, it's got a bypass switch. So, when I pack this away, I will keep this all together as one set. Now the other thing, of course, is, and I think I know what is what, I'm just thinking about this, that this power supply probably goes with this set, or with, I wonder, I'm not going to plug it in, but I think it fits nicely in there. Yes, it does. I'm assuming this needed 9 volts, and this goes here. I'm not going to leave this all plugged in like this at the moment. I'm going to set it aside together because I think that's what was what. So this one is here. Now this cord is not needed at this time for this adventure. This I'm still intrigued by, as I do believe it allowed the modem to be powered differently, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm going to set that aside. I'll put these cables, I'll keep them. This, of course, this is a woodworking pencil that you would sharpen with a knife. A big thick lead. That does not need to be in the box of history. Seems it doesn't even need to be in there. Now this, there's a pin. Go there. Oh, great. Nothing like tossing something where you don't want it to be, or tossing where you want it to be and then it falls on the floor anyway. Alright, so here is a power supply for a modem. An 8010 to be sure. And here is a power supply for a modem. And here is a power supply. So it seems 2 modems, 4 power supplies. Good stuff. And this, I am going to assume, which I know is dangerous, that this power supply, and I love these ones, they were very handy, multiple applications, in that they had different different ends on them for different things. This one actually I'm not sure what this is. Maybe it's just a spare to go with this. I'm not sure, because I don't believe, oh, another funny cable. I don't believe that I have seen anything here that this would work on. I will be daring. I'm going to unplug this from this and look at it and look at this and see if that fits, and indeed it does. So I'm going to keep these together because I believe that's all part of one thing. And this, of course, is the cups from this, and I'm not sure. Let's see, there's this whole other circuit that I believe is the amplifier. I will have to consult. Oh, ow. Oh no, don't lose the Nortec button. And don't drop things. I'm just looking at the connectors. And without looking in, what is that? There's a little wee wire that seems to go to nowhere. Don't do that. I will consult with my brother. There is a 4-prong thing here, and I think that's where the 2 different 2-prong plugs would attach. So when I put this away, carefully, with great reverence, I'm going to put all of this in one. I should find a way. Well, no, I guess I will make an executive decision that each one should have 2 power supplies It's funny, this power supply here is marked Property of Teaching Aids Department, Toronto Board of Education. And I'm sure I know that we would have got that after the, well, probably the garage sale, who knows. But anyway, let me tell you a story one time about this fellow who worked at the Toronto Board of Education. Not the Toronto District School Board, the Toronto Board of Education. His name was Don Whitewood. And I may have told the story before, but it's worth telling again. It was a Sunday when I got a call. And Don Whitewood, he would often demonstrate things, and any time it seemed he would try and demonstrate anything to do with a bulletin board, it wouldn't go well. So he had some big demonstration coming up, and they had basically the same setup as what we were having, what I've showed you here. Although maybe it was just, he just was supposed to be showing how to go onto a bulletin board, and this was, no, you know what, it was a bulletin board. It was. Anyway, I'm not sure if they'd moved things, or they'd done, I don't know what they'd done, but anyway, it was a Sunday, and he was testing things out before he went to do this big demonstration. I think it was on Monday, and of course things didn't work. So I lived not terribly close, sort of near Avenue Road and 401 in Toronto, and the education center, as it was called, was down near College, and I don't remember the name of the street exactly. I think it was 151 or 155, or anyway, it was basically down, you went down Avenue Road and you went over to the west a bit, and there it was. So I got a call from him all frantic, because of course he was going to do this big demonstration, and it wouldn't work. He kept trying to call in, no, nothing. So he said, oh, please come. So I got on my little Yamaha 185 Exciter motorcycle, and I think what happened was, as I remember rightly, I actually drove to his house, which was in this funny little village part of Toronto that I don't remember the name of. But it was kind of on the way. I'd never been there before, I'd never been there since, and I can't remember where it was. But I think it was, I don't know, south of Eglinton, kind of Bathurst, something. I don't know, it was some funny little enclave there. Anyway, so I left my motorcycle there, and I believe then he drove. And down to the education center we went. And he had an assistant who wasn't there. And I'm struggling to remember his name because he was a great guy. Anyway, so he just said, it's in there, go have a look. He didn't give me any sort of talk about what or who, and I said, no, that's fine. I'll just let me look at it with fresh eyes and see what I can see. So of course it consisted of a PET and a dual disk drive and a modem and a printer. And then of course all the things to plug them in and all the cables to connect them, and that is what was what. So I went in and I said, well, I better have a look at this. So of course I checked to make sure that, they all had power, and they did. And the computer was turned on, and the bulletin board was, seeming to be there. And I think I probably broke the program and did a directory or a catalog on the disk, made sure everything looked okay, and reran it, made sure everything seemed fine. And I thought, well, I better just have a look at some of these cables. So for those that know the PET, there's a PET to IEEE cable, and that typically goes from the computer to the disk drive. And then, of course, you can daisy chain things together. So I started looking and following along. And I don't know where the printer was in the equation, but I certainly do. I think the printer came next, and then the modem was farther over. And so IEEE sorry, PET to IEEE, IEEE to IEEE to the printer, and then there was another IEEE to IEEE cable that was to go to the modem, but it wasn't attached. And I plugged it in, and Don was in another room, and I said that's where he was calling from, because I guess he was going to be taking whatever setup he had to whatever meeting and whatever demonstration and such. And I said, try it now. I think the modem was also, no, the modem was turned on, just wasn't connected. And I said, try it now, and of course the bulletin board answered, and he started doing things and testing things, and everything was fine. And I'm pretty sure, even though I didn't want to tell him what I did, I'm pretty sure he weaseled it out of me. And he felt terrible, for here I was, a high school student, you know, in the midst of life and other such things, being called on a Sunday to come and save his bacon when all they had done is forgot to connect an IEEE to IEEE cable. It was connected to the printer. It just wasn't connected to the modem. But anyway, things happen. And of course, if someone is frantic about doing something, or excited, or agitated, or like, oh my God, here we go again, it's easy for them to stop seeing what they're seeing. Whereas a pair of fresh eyes can walk in and say, oh yeah, plug that in. Anyway, so that's the story of the Toronto Board of Education and their bulletin board. This may have been something, one of the first ones, you know, now of course everything is networked and everything is connected and everything is, you know, dandy, but this, remember, these were the pioneer days. Everything was new, everything was exciting, and perhaps equally frustrating at times for some. So, what I am going to do, I'm going to find a banker's box, and I'm going to mark it, and I will carefully put all this aside, and at some point I will consult with my brother to make sure that I have everything just so, and I'm going to hunt over the next while for discs, and oh, let me tell you another story. Okay. We worked also with a fellow who was rather a genius of sorts, David Williams. Lost touch with him long ago. Don't know if he's okay or what's up, or I don't know. Anyway, he was a teacher, but also he was into computers. He did all kinds of cool things. And when we had bulletin board troubles, he said, well, you know, we could change the ROMs some. And mostly the trouble we had is if there's a power failure, and then when the board came back up, there was no AutoBoot. The machine wouldn't come back up. It was just dead. So anyway, we consulted with him, and he came up with some modifications. And it wasn't just even to start the machine only. This was a PET. Remember PET? Turn it on. Does nothing. It wasn't just that. He also had part of this all in there that I remember he would make reference to cosmic rays, and that somehow or another, out of the blue, something in a computer's memory could get changed by a cosmic ray. So he had something in there that while the bulletin board was sitting there doing nothing, and I remember there was just a little thing up in the corner that would tell you this was running. It was just flashing characters and things and stuff. It would run through, and basically if anything inside the machine changed during its downtime, when it was just sitting there waiting for the next call, it would assume a cosmic ray had struck, that something could potentially go bad, the machine could freeze up, and to prevent any such thing from that happening, it would automatically do a reboot. And the system would come back up and the bulletin board would be back online. Because a time or two where there were power failures during holidays, when we were running a bulletin board out of Northern Secondary, and of course looking back, you know what, we could have, if I'd gone in and said to the caretaker, hey, can I just go in here and take me a minute to start this up, they probably would have let us, but we didn't know any better at the time. So, of course, when you go through official channels and try and get word to administrators and things, they're like, no. Anyway, that's one of the reasons we did this, because if there was power failure, the board, yes, it would be down during the power failure, but it would start up and be back online automatically. And I think it also, we had a printer hooked up, I think it would also log and do a thing to print out any time that it had reset for whatever reason. I don't know if it, I'm sure it didn't say why, but it would just acknowledge that there'd been a reboot, so at least we knew, okay, something's up here. Something is up. Anyway, I will carefully put this stuff away and be ready to hopefully one day, maybe at a TPUG meeting or such, put such things on display and maybe even set up a bulletin board with the original things that we did use them all the way back when, assuming they're working, with, you know, discs and programs, and maybe even, I'm sure I have the PET that we used that had all this trickery in it. Does it work at the moment? I don't know. I've got to look and see. But I would like to get discs and things and stuff together to attempt to have a working BBS, just like we did way back when. And let's see what's what. Anyway, but this is the start. Got to start with something. And this is inspiration to continue to search. So as I said before, basically 2 modems, 3 answer circuits, power supplies, wires, phone. Need to find another phone. And yeah. So here we are, gazing at history. Anyway, enough for now. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening to the stories. We have many, many, many more bulletin board stories. It really was, you know, pre-internet and, what to say, pioneer days. And always exciting. Always. Learned so much from those days. I'm sure many, many people who are involved in TPUG and other such things still cherish those meetings, those memories, and demonstrations by all sorts of people who were brilliant at the time, legends now. Some have left us, some are with us. Yes. I'm so glad that the PET came along. And the 64, and the VIC-20, and all the rest. But really, my fondest memories are of the PET. And still, we're like that. There are people that I met through TPUG I'm still in touch with. Some 40 years later, some I've not been in touch with, but their memories are still cherished and special. Alright, I'm going to carry on. But there will be more stories, and as I delve into the basement, who knows what I will find. Anyway, thanks so much for coming. Write if you have any questions or comments. I will answer as best as I can, as quickly as I can. Alright. Until we meet again.